Have you ever heard of a family that never dies? A noble bloodline, untouched by time, their faces never changing, their presence lingering like a shadow over centuries. The villagers whisper of them in hushed tones, a family that should have faded into history, but never did. I was sent to investigate. A simple inquiry, a few interviews, a historical deep dive. But what I found was something else entirely, because once I set foot in that cursed village, they knew I was there, and they were watching me. I arrived in the village of Văcărescu just past midnight. The road had been long and winding, cutting through the Carpathian mountains like a scar. The moment I stepped out of my car, the air felt wrong, heavy, like the silence wasn't natural. The village itself was ancient, cobblestone streets, crumbling facades, houses with windows boarded shut. But the strangest thing, there were no lights, not a single flicker from a candle, not the dull glow of a television screen behind a curtain. It was as if the entire town had been swallowed by darkness. I was here to investigate the Corvinesti family, a noble lineage with roots tracing back to the 14th century. Records showed they owned the vast, decaying mansion that loomed on the outskirts of town, a place the locals refused to go near. For centuries, there had been rumors, stories of the family's unnatural longevity. Some claimed to have seen them in portraits hundreds of years apart, unchanged. Others swore they had buried them, only to find their graves empty years later. But the most unsettling reports? People disappearing. Every decade, without fail, a villager would vanish. No traces, no explanations. And now, I was here, alone. And something in that darkness was watching me. The first sign that something was wrong came almost immediately. As I made my way through the village, I noticed the doors. Every single one had symbols carved into the wood. Crude crosses, circles, strange markings that didn't belong to any language I recognized. Protection symbols, warnings. A soft rustling broke the silence. I turned sharply. Nothing. Just the shadows stretching between the houses, darker than they should have been. But I knew something had moved. I could feel it. Then came the whisper. Low, rasping. A language I didn't understand, but it slithered through the air, wrapping around me like cold fingers. I followed the sound, down a narrow alleyway, heart hammering against my ribs. That's when I saw it. A figure, hunched over, motionless. Its back was turned to me, its frame impossibly thin beneath tattered clothing. "Hello?" My voice barely carried. Slowly, the figure straightened. My breath caught. The neck cracked unnaturally as it twisted toward me, revealing a face that shouldn't have been alive. Sunken skin, stretched over jagged bones, eyes, black and hollow, and the mouth, stitched shut, with thick, rotting thread. Then, in a blink, it was gone. The whispering returned, this time from behind me. Something was wrong with this village, and I had just made my presence known. I didn't sleep that night. The innkeeper refused to speak about what I had seen, only muttering, "Stay inside after dark. Keep the fire burning." Outside, the village was silent, too silent. No wind, no insects, not even the distant howl of wolves. Just an unnatural, suffocating stillness. Then, just past midnight, the screaming began. A shriek, raw, inhuman. It shattered the silence, echoing through the village like something from a nightmare. I bolted to the window. The darkness beyond the glass shifted. Something was out there, watching, waiting. Torchlight flared down the street. The villagers had gathered, their faces pale and stricken with fear. A man had gone missing, vanished from his home. No doors broken, no tracks in the dirt, just gone. The elders spoke in hushed, panicked voices. I pressed closer, straining to hear. "The family," one of them whispered. "The noble house has awakened again." A name was spoken, a name that sent a cold shiver down my spine. The House of Văcărescu, the same family that had ruled this land for centuries. And if the stories were true, had never aged, never died. I had come searching for folklore. I was beginning to realize I had walked into something much, much worse. I couldn't ignore it anymore. The whispers, the disappearances, the unrelenting sense of being watched. I had to know the truth. Under the cloak of night, I made my way to the manor. It loomed atop the hill, shrouded in mist, its towering spires silhouetted against the moon. It was ancient, but untouched by time. Just like its inhabitants, the gate was unlocked. An invitation or a warning? Inside, the air was thick with the scent of wax, old wood, and something metallic. The grand hall was lined with portraits, faces frozen in time, identical across centuries. Then I heard it, a whisper, right behind me. I spun around. Nothing, but the air had changed, charged with something unnatural. The villagers believed the Văcărescu were cursed, bound to the night, sustained by the blood of the living. The disappearances, the unnatural silence, the unaging nobility. Was this proof of their existence? I reached for my journal, my hand trembling. What if the curse wasn't just a legend? What if I was already too deep? A gust of wind slammed the doors shut behind me. I was trapped. The candlelight flickered, casting shadows that seemed to shift, to move on their own. My pulse pounded in my ears. And then I saw him. At the top of the grand staircase, a man stood watching me. Or was it a man at all? His face was eerily perfect, his skin smooth, yet deathly pale, his eyes black pools that swallowed the light. He didn't blink, didn't breathe. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice calm, too calm. I forced myself to speak. "What are you?" He smiled, revealing teeth too sharp, too white. "The last of our kind." Suddenly, a wave of dizziness crashed over me. My vision blurred. The candlelight warped and stretched. I stumbled, my limbs heavy, my thoughts slow. The tea. Had I been drugged? His voice was the last thing I heard before the darkness swallowed me. "Curiosity has a price, Doctor Mercer, and now you belong to us." I woke to the sound of whispers, software sinister, right beside my ear. My body felt weightless, suspended between sleep and wakefulness. I tried to move, I couldn't. My arms, my legs, my fingers, paralyzed. Then, a presence. I wasn't alone. From the darkness, a shape emerged. The same man, the last of his kind. He crouched beside me, studying me with a predator's patience, the way a lion watches a wounded deer. "You've seen too much," he murmured, tracing a cold finger along my throat. "But there is one way to leave this place, alive." The air between us felt heavy, electric. Then I saw it, the chalice, the dark viscous liquid inside. Blood. Mine. Theirs. I didn't know. "Drink," he whispered, pressing it to my lips. "Or die." I turned away, refusing. My mind screamed, but my body betrayed me. A drop touched my tongue, cold, sweet, overwhelming. Darkness rushed in, a drowning sensation, a hunger, and then silence. When I woke, I felt different, stronger, lighter, alive in a way I had never been before. But something was wrong. I turned to the mirror. The reflection staring back wasn't mine. Was I still Dr. Elias Mercer? Or had I become one of them? The bloodline of the Undying was never just a legend. It was a warning. I left that village, but I didn't escape it. Not really. Even now I feel it. The hunger, the whispers in the dark. Something inside me has changed. And I wonder, was I spared or was I claimed? One thing is certain, the curse lives on. And if you ever find yourself in a forgotten village, staring into the ageless eyes of a stranger who never seems to change, run. Because once they choose you, there is no escape. But what do you think? Was this the work of something beyond science? Or is there an explanation lurking beneath the shadows? Tell me, do you believe in the Undying? And if you thought this was terrifying, wait until you hear about a case even darker. Click here, if you dare.